Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and as most teams are bringing their streamed practice to an end, what are the takeaways so far from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in terms of which teams are actually good? Dashy reckons 11 teams are pretty much on par in this game so far, but one team is absolutely terrible. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that one on the laptop today. Bit of an echo. We'll get through it tomorrow. It should be back to normal. Firstly, we've got to talk about some absolute madness going on in the challenger scene. Here's Doug Censor with the pull-up competition going on. But there's also this right now that apparently happens in Control. This is remarkable. This poor guy here is in a 1 versus 1. The top of the screen says 1v1 Control. The guy's capping the hard point. Okay, you've got to go in the hard points or the control points, get one kill, you win the round. He hops in just in time. And then what is this? Two guys, one comes to the left, one comes to the right, and he's done for. It's like, hang on a second here. I thought that was a 1 versus 1. What's going on? Apparently what happens is, this is just mind-blowing stuff, that if more than one player dies at the same time, leaving the opponents down to just one life remaining, all of the players that died at the exact same moment get to spawn in regardless. So if you all die to a kill streak, or if you all die to a grenade, and let's say 3 people die to a kill streak, and then it goes down to a 1 versus 1 on the scoreboard, doesn't matter. Those 3 guys still get to spawn back up. This is absolute comedy, honestly, from Joe Secret on the lads. Obviously, they should be able to fix this, theoretically. When, I don't know. But yeah, apparently this is the case. If you kill more than one person at the exact same moment, then it doesn't matter. There's only one life remaining. They all get to come back up regardless. So yeah, if that happens in the CDL, man, we're going to have some more controversial moments here in Control. We had that massive controversial moment back in the Black Ops 4 days when Zoom and Co capped the points. Slack's got the kill with the Slack Slam, and yet he got the win even though the point was captured. Dramatic stuff. LG versus FaZe back in Black Ops 4. Might have more where that came from in this game if there's multiple lads spawning back in despite having all their lives eliminated. So that is a dodgy one. And even this from Detain saying that apparently the timing control is dodgy as well. Sometimes the clock just will stop for no reason at 2 minutes 30. Not ideal. At least there is control in this game. In Vanguard at this point, we didn't even have control. So I guess that's a positive. But yeah, more glitches being discovered by the day. This was a big drama of last night on the challenger side. Boston Beans and the Boston Academy found themselves, I mean, Doug Censor, this has happened to him 2 years in a row. Last year it was Zach Sedenya, his teammate, I believe, whose pro points from the previous season were not getting transferred. Basically, Beans last year was playing in Europe. This year he's playing in North America. So Game Battles have to transition his pro points from his European account over to North America. Shouldn't be that much of a big deal. Apparently what happened here is he asked Game Battles, hey, can you change my region from Europe to North America? And they did exactly that. They didn't change his points though. As he says, all my Vanguard points are now void because when I asked for my region to be changed, I didn't specify points as well. So this is just crazy. So like, how does Game Battles mess up like this every year? Just put his points over as well. Surely that makes perfect sense. He earned the points last season, the pro points. And this isn't just like an irrelevant fact because this is incredibly important for seeding for this Challengers team. The entire Boston Academy got screwed over here because last night they played with a seeding that implied Boston had 0 pro points for last year. So look, there's a big difference in losing a tournament and going out top 16 and losing to a top 2 team. And then if you have the more pro points, you'd end up, when you play the top 2 team, you're getting top 4 effectively, right? You know what I mean? The better seeding is better. If you have a worse seeding, it effectively screwed over Doug's journey last year to some degree. In that early on, he had a similar thing happen to him. Game Battles messed it up, and therefore he starts off the year on the back foot because if you've got a good seeding, that gets you further in tournaments, and then if you lose these tournaments because you've got a worse seeding, your seeding gets worse, or certainly not better, and it's hurting people. Now, this is fine for Beans, I think. At the end of the day, Beans, we know how talented this guy is. I think that he'll probably get a spot this season on Boston at some point or another. But for the team, Doug, Kremp, and Shawnee, it's not ideal, right? As Doug says, they owe me an apology. Especially because the first cup is pretty much the most important one. It gets you potentially seeding to go to, the Pro-Am, right, is where Doug wants to be. That might not happen now as a result of this. Now, yes, even though this did happen, they could still have done better in the tournament last night. But if they had the seeding they deserved, they might well have got through to the Sunday at least to give themselves a good chance. Turns out that wasn't the case, largely, at least in part, based on these reasoning. So yeah, crazy stuff. Even as Doug says, completely unacceptable. We spend 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and our seed is our stock. That's a massive slap in the face, and I expect better. He actually did a video on this like he likes to do, and that was since deleted. So maybe he said something he thought was a little bit too far, but I still think he believes what he says here in terms of they got messed over by this. Now, of course, they faced the adversity. Could they get through the adversity? Not in the end. Top 16 in the first cup of the year, unfortunately, he says. So yeah, onwards and upwards for Doug, but not ideal, because if they hadn't had to play some of the teams they played, Chino and Co, pretty good team. That's Wardy's team. They made it through here. They lost a pretty tough round 11. Actually, Chino managed to clutch a 1v1 with a sniper here, which is pretty ridiculous. Here comes Chino around the corner. 1v1 round 11 here on the hotel. And yeah, they go down. Tough scenes for sure for Doug and the boys, but some other things to mention here. So Yeezy's team, they got through to top 8. They played Dave Paddy and Co for top 6. So, you know, that's what's happening later on today. These are the top 8 teams in the European side. Eric Boom and Co, the Awoba Bobs, they're like AIM Esports, the Spanish guys, Rafi's team, Elevator Course, the team that won their Breaking Point next tourney a few days ago. Then in North America, it looks like this. Hixie and Co, Rex's team, the Rokkr Academy, that's Real and Fame and those guys. Los Angeles Guerrillas Academy, of course, that won the Breaking Point next tourney. Wardy and Co is Chino's team that just took down Doug, as we saw, and Mohawk's team as well, that's now changed with Saints coming back into the picture. So yeah, there you go. Absolute mess again from the CDL and the game battle sides. Doug isn't happy about it, and you can't exactly blame him given it's the second year in a row now that this has happened. Quick thing on the maps here. Some positivity, potentially. Some rumours circulating that possibly Crown Raceway could be okay. Now, there are 3 maps in this game. Well, there were 2 maps now. There were 3 maps in this game that are literally copied and pasted from real life. The museum map is just a museum in real life, and you've seen some other pro players and influencers and stuff actually go to that museum to just be on the map in real life. Crazy stuff, they copied it. Hotel is the same story. Crown Raceway, though, is, well, it's copied from the Singapore Grand Prix paddock in Singapore, Marina Bay, and, well, initially it was called Marina Bay Grand Prix. Obviously, they couldn't do that, so they had to change the name to Crown Raceway, and then the pros got kind of indications early on in this year's cycle, literally a week or so ago, I suppose, that, yeah, Crown Raceway not going to happen because, I suppose, Formula 1, maybe understandably, don't want their property broadcasted live on stream in a shooting game. I guess it kind of makes sense. So, you know, that's the situation as it was. We thought Crown Raceway was therefore going to be gone forever, despite being one of the better maps, certainly for Search and Destroy, I think, certainly better than this hydroelectric map. There is absolutely no doubt about it, in my opinion. So Hotel, we thought was going to be gone. Initially, the CDL confirmed that it was going to be gone from the rotation, and then we saw 3 hours later, they updated the rule set to bring Hotel back in for Major 1. So Hotel stays for Major 1, and that's the question I was raising. If Hotel gets to stay for Major 1, why can't it stay for Major 2 and beyond? Because that was kind of the implication from Dashy that it's going to be here for Major 1 and then gone. So Crown Raceway might well come back after Major 1. So yeah, maybe they are going to solve the legal issues or whatever's going on there and it's actually allowed to be used. They're going to have to change the map or something. I don't know. But potentially some positivity, because genuinely, if we get Hotel and Crown Raceway and we can get rid of the Hydro map, we actually don't have a terrible map pool. It's not great, but it's actually not terrible, and especially compared to last year, let's say. Let's talk about some scrims then. So last night, it was pretty much the final night the teams were streaming. It's mostly been Vegas the last few days. They played up against OpTic, and yeah, Shotzzy, this guy is just incredibly difficult to kill. But Dashy was giving his thoughts on how good the teams are so far. We've seen many of these scrim results the last few days. Certain teams are looking good, certain teams aren't, but many teams seem to be on a very similar level. Toronto, you know, Minnesota Rokkr, OpTic, FaZe, Los Angeles Thieves. Everything we've seen, even Seattle, these guys on a pretty similar level, and Dashy right now can't really separate between them. He says, yeah, damn, 11 teams in this game are good. He says every team is good, and then he changes his mind and says, yeah, well, there's one team that is absolutely awful.
I feel like every team's good this year. Actually, I lied, except for like one. And obviously not gonna, don't be like, who? Who is it?
So the question is for you guys, which team is he discussing? He doesn't want to mention it, but I'm sure we can read between the lines here a little bit, because there's only a few teams that it actually can be. Obviously, he's not talking about OpTic. Last night they played Vegas, and even Bance, I believe, said a few days ago, Vegas are one of the best, if not the best team in the game right now. The best team in the game might be a bit of a stretch, but still, Vegas are competitive. They do well in scrims. I don't know how. We're going to talk about more of the drama going on within that camp later on today, but they do pretty well. OpTic obviously are very solid. Like, they split maps or win the majority of maps against most teams they play. Boston are pretty good. Boston did lose, though, pretty heavily yesterday to Minnesota. Rokkr have been looking good so far. Toronto have largely won their map kind of count up against what we've seen against Boston. Some teams we haven't seen much of. Florida Mutineers we've seen some of, but usually they split maps from what we've seen so far. Los Angeles Guerrillas usually been on the losing end, right? And we don't imagine Dashy's talking about LAG, I don't think. LAG are probably not terrible, but they don't seem to be great from what we've seen so far. But I doubt that they're in the absolutely terrible category given some of the other teams that are in discussion. So going into the season, the question to me was, in terms of power rankings, I had Los Angeles Guerrillas maybe in the top 8 range. It was the same with Boston, Breach, and New York Subliners. One of those teams I think is going to have to be top 9. Maybe it's going to be Boston. Then 3 teams I thought would be the worst: Vegas, Florida, London. Vegas might actually be better than we expected. That pushes everyone else down. The other 2 teams that are in the conversation here, in my opinion, are London and the Florida Mutineers. And if we are saying that Vegas are pretty good, then last night they played a scrim up against Los Angeles Angeles Guerrillas, and it was 4-3 in Vegas' favor. So this is pretty much a classic Vegas script where they pretty much split every map, but it's not like LEG are getting blown out. So I don't imagine that OpTic are talking about Los Angeles Guerrillas, but obviously at this point they've played everyone. I believe it's very competitive, but there might be some teams better or worse than others. And last night, Boston lose at 6-2 to the Minnesota Rokkr, but obviously Boston the other day beat FaZe 6-1, and they split maps against OpTic most of the times they played them, so I highly doubt these two teams are in conversation. That leaves Florida, who, as I say, they've looked all right. I haven't seen too much from them. They haven't streamed anything, but we can see on the occasional scrim set that they've kind of split maps. London, though, are not looking so hot. We went into the season, I thought London would be the worst team. We did see, though, was it that like flank tourney that happened where I think both of the London kind of pairings came top 3 or top 4, maybe one came second, one came fourth, so wasn't a bad start for Nasty Asim and Paulx and Zero respectively. But yeah, as a quartet, I'm not sure it's particularly good. We can see here even last night they played London, Boston played London, and Boston aren't exactly spectacular. We saw they just lost 6-2 to Rokkr, and they take down London here 6-2 as well. And we can see the Hydro was a clear 80-point club, right? Okay, a couple of the maps here were close, but still 250 to 100 on Fortress, 250 to 80 on Hydro, and even 250 to 170 on Embassy is not particularly pretty for London. So it is kind of sad to see, but my expectation is this is what Dashy's talking about. I reckon he's talking about London not being particularly good. That's my opinion. You guys might disagree in the comment section below, but yeah, I'm not sure they're looking so hot so far. The other side of the story is, though, as Dashy did say, like, Dan, if there are 11 teams that are competitive in this game, what are we going to see this year? Because early on, we haven't seen much differential in terms of how good these teams have been. Like, okay, some teams have looked good in scrum, some teams haven't, but largely they've been splitting maps. Of course, we don't know what Search and Destroy, how that's going to play out. We don't see that type of stuff. Some teams, if they're really good at Search, that might be the difference maker. But we thought last season was random and difficult to predict in Vanguard, but yet there was still some consistencies. Thieves at the end of the year, FaZe always getting seconds. So this season, who knows what's going to happen, right? If the teams are as competitive or the game is as random, that's always the discussion there, as it appears to be early on in terms of what the teams are doing in terms of results, maybe with the exception of this one team in London that Dashy is describing, then yeah, I think we have a very entertaining year ahead. And who's even going to be the best team? I think it's incredibly hard to call going into Major 1. And also, what happens to London if they are just pretty terrible, right? Like, what moves do they actually make? I think they made a mistake letting go of Afro without bringing in Wardy or Beans. I think the Wardy or Beans had to be a no-brainer call for London. Either they didn't offer enough money, because apparently those players turned down the opportunity to go on London and preferred to be on the bench of the subliners and Breach respectively. That just shows how things have been going in their London camp lately. But they probably could have offered more money and got the job done. They didn't want to do it, or for whatever reason occurred on that front, and therefore they find themselves with this team where, you know, I don't know, I like Asim, but is he going to get dropped for like the 4th year in a row? I don't know, maybe it's possible. This guy's so good when he's on form, but when he's not, it's not always looking so hot for them, and there certainly are questions there about the SMG duo compared to the others in the league. Nasty and Asim are going to have to deliver. They will do on occasion, but I'm not sure they'll be consistent enough to even make champs with that roster. That's my opinion, but very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.